Welcome to Who Knows. And today I'm joined by somebody who knows about the crumbling of America's finest city, unfortunately. It's Adam Huntington. Adam, thanks for being here.
Hey, good morning, Henry. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great. It's great being able to talk. So for listeners, we're both San Diegans here, and I've been following Adam on Twitter, sort of locally go through one by one, seeing a fantastic city be governed downward. And I think Adam has a lot of great insight into that, which I want to ask him about. So it's going to be about San Diego, but I think it applies to a broader trend kind of across the West in within cities and neighborhoods where people live over the last few decades that we're seeing. So Adam, why don't we start with like your background, where you're from, how you got into all the things you like to cover on Twitter.
Yeah, it's thank you for having me again. And My background is it, er, excuse me, University of Southern California. I studied urban planning and development, and it was one of the best urban planning schools in the country at the time. I feel like I had great professors from Irvine Company, staff from USC. Throughout Southern California, we had a lot of great adjunct professors. So I feel like I really got a great knowledge base there. Then I've been in the mortgage industry for about 15 years now. And I've also been a realtor as well in multiple states. I've been licensed in as many as 35 states as a mortgage loan officer. So I'm familiar with mortgage lending laws all over the country. And I own and manage several rentals myself in both Montana and California. Um, and I was a San Diego lifeguard for 20 years. So I have a
Mm.
pretty intimate knowledge of how the inner workings of the city of San Diego work, which is not good.
So maybe compare and contrast your degree in urban planning and development to how urban planning and development is done in the city of San Diego.
Oh gosh, my specialty was urban transportation. I studied urban
Okay.
transportation all over the world. I studied in Italy. I studied in Japan and France
Mm.
as well. And the, the things that we have been learning for a century in urban planning and development throughout Europe, the United States of America, largely different development patterns. And while America was getting more efficient uh, every single year, we're moving traffic, we're moving people faster and faster and faster.
Hmm.
Um, Somewhere along the lines, I noticed, I want to say maybe in the last 5 years or so, we started regressing. And it seemed like traffic signals were being lengthened. It seemed like roads were being closed for no reason, maybe construction, but at the same time, uh, really expanding the footprint of construction and Caltrans and things like that, which is inhibiting the efficiency of our transportation systems. Um, and then you look at all the money that's being spent on um, the mass transit system, and then you kind of look at the reasons why we're spending so much money on the mass transit system, which then feeds into this housing thing, this big monstrosity of housing, which then ties into the NGOs and the homeless industrial complex. And so it's really kind of a nasty octopus with a lot of tentacles going in all different directions, which I think ultimately, is draining resources, are already limited resources that we've always had limited resources in San Diego, which has been very frustrating to me. Watching the tax base grow here and watching the city go from like a sleepy little surf ranch town to America's seventh largest city. I mean,
Hmm.
we're always told, the Chargers left because we're a small market team. That's a small market town. That's not exactly true. So
Hmm.
there's a lot of contributing factors. I think that all come into play.
So I wanna back out and get to the kind of one by one the issues you're seeing and the causes of them, potentially the solutions. But with your transportation background and knowledge, I have to bring up the double electric buses that go around San Diego now in the last like few years. This is maybe it's especially IB. You see them. Maybe it's like a
I've
South Bay
never.
thing.
No, I don't know what
You
you're talking,
haven't
like
seen
a
these?
real electric
Okay.
bus.
There's a whole new line they added on top of the existing bus lines. This is started probably a year and a half ago. They spent millions and millions on double electric buses. They
Like double
go
deckers,
what's that?
double decker buses.
Double long.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Okay,
Double long. So
accordion kind.
yeah, the accordion kind, exactly. So there's a new line in the last few years of these double electric buses that go all around, mainly the South Bay, it must be, and spent millions of dollars on this. And there's never anybody on them, not one person ever. And I tell my kids in the car, like, there's another bus. Just try to find somebody in there. There's never anybody in there. Max 3 people. It's a double bus. And it's 100% electric. It's good for the environment. And it's basically just like, what might be better for the environment is not building a bunch of electric buses that drive around that no one's going to use instead of spending
100%.
millions and millions of dollars on these things and nobody needs them at all. So that is like where you see the dollars just going into an absolute black hole. It's an example of it, that is so clearly a waste of money. You see it more and more.
Yeah, I mean that's really the frustrating thing I think for every single person that I'm seeing show up to a lot of different events and just talking to around San Diego. We're investing in all these things, A, that aren't going to last, and B, they don't seem like they're actually being utilized. Like the bike lanes, for example, we're putting these plastic boulders up everywhere,
Yeah.
and after a few months, they're discolored, they're broken down, or they're just completely gone, and they just create an environmental hazard for everybody, not to mention the actual physical hazards if you're riding through there and one of those bolts that comes up from the ground stabs your tire or something, something along those lines. That's the ironic part is that I don't know if you saw the article where the woman that's in charge of bike lanes for the city of San Diego, her family, I guess, was riding through North Park or something like that, and somebody opened the car door into the bike lane and took out her husband and child. And I don't know. Now they're suing the city for millions of dollars,
No.
which blows me away. And
No.
the funny thing is, the day before, I kid you not, the day before, I was talking to a maintenance manager here in Pacific Beach, and he suggested to me, he said, "Hey, listen, if you really want to get those bike lanes cleaned up, you should have an accident in the bike lane." Wink, wink. And I'm not, I don't know what the guy's name
Yeah.
was, I don't know what he looks like or anything like that, but I just thought it was ironic that the next day, the woman that is in charge of the bike lanes for the city of San Diego ended up having her family crushed in the bike lane or something, and now they're suing us for millions and millions of dollars.
Wow, that is insane. That's
Yeah,
insane. Um, okay, so let's back out and let's kind of go through one by one the issues you're seeing in the city, potentially what's causing them, and then we'll let's start with the overview, kind of quick hitters here.
I think the number one issue is homelessness.
Yeah.
Homelessness and the lack of enforcement of any of our laws is contributing to people feeling unsafe, not going to walking down the street to go frequent businesses. The businesses are not getting the support. I've seen it numerous times. I've actually seen the business owners prosecuted for defending their businesses. And so this all contributes to just San Diego in a death spiral. I think that's our number one issue.
Okay, so homelessness is undoubtedly growing over the last decade, or pick any time frame you want. And why do you think that is?
Well, that's interesting. I actually went to an event for Richard Bailey last night, who's on this policy over politics tour, which is really, really interesting. And he says that basically, and he's using government statistics for this, but the statistics are that homelessness is either flat or declining in most parts of the country. Yet here in California, it's up 61%, something along those lines. And why is that? Well, it comes down to the policies. The people that are running California, they have a super majority. They don't need to listen to anybody's other opposing ideas. So they're running this housing first um, policy, which has been disastrous. And anybody who can't look at this housing first policy that's been deployed over the last 15 years and recognizes an abject failure, and that anybody pushing it should not be taken seriously in any way, shape, or form. We have humans lying all over our streets. Um, it's just it comes down to policy, and um, then I can go into the next step on that uh, next.
Yeah, so um, feel free to go there, or obviously the state, if you back out a little bit, it has
Mhm.
spent billions on fixing homelessness, only to see it increase. So what's the tie? What's the tie there? What are they spending money on, and why is it increasing instead of decreasing it? The problem.
So that ties directly into this next step here, right? So we have homelessness increasing; it's getting worse. So we have the homeless industrial complex, right? We have
Mhm.
thousands and thousands of nonprofits that are essentially siphoning off billions of dollars a year from each county and each city. Um, and if you read their mission statements, which are available on public tax returns, which are known as 990s, you can just look them up on any any nonprofit. You just type it into the internet, and you can look at their 990s. Most of the mission statements are tied to ending homelessness. There's also this thing called continuum of care. That's one of their big buzzwords. So the continuum of care
Hmm.
allows them to get these grants, which so we're funding all this through HUD or through our county or through our city, local tax dollars or federal. So then we funnel them to, whatever the grants are, ending homelessness. We got to provide food, we got to provide shelter, all this stuff. And there's really no metrics behind that. So then they start disseminating the tax dollars to different subsidiary service providers for that continuum of care, right? So either handing out rubber gloves, handing out needles, handing out Narcan, handing out tents, whatever the case is. These are all continuum of care projects to end homelessness. But the problem is that 40% of all the revenue that they're generating for these nonprofits is going directly to the salaries of these organizations. So like maybe the top 2, top 3, top 5 people in each nonprofit are making 40% of the total revenue. And apparently the numbers are that every person they sign up for their homeless programs, they get about $1 million per homeless person that they sign up. So there's
No.
no real incentive to get these people off the streets, right? So they kind of they want to keep them around so they can keep them on the rolls, but they also don't want to house them and get them off their rolls. So they kind of give them enough just to survive, and they keep them around. And then, we clean it all up. The police go do a cleanup and everything, and you don't see the people for a while, and then they come back.
Yeah.
And so this just goes on and on and on. And it's a money laundering scheme. And it's really unfortunate that we have it's probably the largest scam in the history of America, because then it ties into this affordable housing thing, which is the next reason why everything is going to hell in a handbasket, essentially.
Let's do so the homelessness thing. I interviewed a few weeks ago Melody Wright. She's from Tennessee. Have you come across her work at all?
No, I don't think so.
She's in real estate, and she has a Substack and YouTube channel as well, where she goes out to cities and like reports on the housing market locally. And she did one in San Diego 6 or 8 months ago, and she tried to get into that homeless, like structured homeless program, that tent city on the backside of Balboa Park and the Five.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and they wouldn't let her in. They wouldn't let her fly a drone over it or anything. She interviewed one of the homeless people outside about it. That was it, but she couldn't get in. Do you know anything about that program specifically? So for the listeners, there's hundreds and hundreds of tents in a row in this sort of dead spot right off the highway, where it's just like a little city of homeless people run by. some government officials.
Yeah, so that's interesting. John Kokoza and I actually went and filmed that about 6 months ago.
Did you?
And
Okay.
that was, yeah, there's a video on my profile if you check it out. And I can repost it for everybody and send it over to you. It's pretty
Yeah.
alarming. There's just it looks like a third world country over there. It is absolutely a somewhat of a self-sufficient, like third world drug market over there. And it's crazy because I think you see students walking through there because it's a shortcut, which I don't know why they would do that, but
Mm.
it's basically behind Father Joe's, I think, and also Lucky Duck Foundation. So there's a couple. It's literally adjacent to the homeless centers that are downtown in San Diego. And it's rough over there, man. There's a lot of good single family homes over there right across the freeway. It's a really
Hmm.
nice neighborhood. I got to be honest. It's beautiful architecture, old school, beautiful architecture from San Diego, and
Yeah.
it just feels it is unsafe over there. I mean, John and I went over there just walking around, and we got followed by several people and harassed a little bit, and but that's just what it is over there. It's just so unfortunate because I keep saying this, we're spending billions of dollars a year on this in San Diego, and with that kind of money we should be able to have an army of people out there. Do you know how much we spend on the Marines at Camp Pendleton every year? It's only about a half a billion.
Man.
It's but we are quadrupling that on this homeless funding here in San Diego, which I don't think anybody really understands. We could have kept the Chargers here for one investment of $300 million one time to help them build the stadium. I'm not advocating for that. I'm kind of glad we told the NFL to pound the sand, but at the same time, one $300 million payment would have kept the Chargers here, which is a huge component of our community. And the
Hmm.
whole town changed after the Chargers left. It's really unfortunate. But man, we're spending about $1 billion a year now on homelessness, like for our county grants and our city grants that are going directly to these nonprofits. And I could list them, but there's just too many. There's too many to list here.
Man, that is crazy.
Yeah.
All right, so that moves us, like you said, to affordable housing, um, which I don't know anything about. So let's talk to me like I'm 5 years old about what that means and what's being done and how it all
Yeah.
works.
So this is the crazy thing now. So in as far as I understand it, anytime you're going to be building 5 units or more, there are a bunch of bonus density things that you can add in, and which allow you to put more units in, which is obviously going to increase your profit. So there are California laws, county laws, and city laws, and they all want housing to be cheaper because there's so many homeless people out on the streets, right? And housing is so expensive. That's We could argue that there's not enough housing, or we could argue that our government has allowed giant corporations to buy up all of our housing stock all throughout the nation, which is it's a very simple formula: supply and demand. The more supply is, or the more supply there is, the cheaper everything's going to be. There's going to be less demand. That's just how it is. So the affordable housing thing, essentially, California has required any new builds to have 25% affordable housing, as far as I understand it. Now, what does that mean? That means that you have to have a certain fit into a certain economic range in order to qualify for that housing, which is kind of an interesting conundrum, right? So if you make too much money, you can't live there. If you don't make enough money, you know, how are you going to live there? So we're building all of this in, and then there's the argument, do people that can afford regular housing, do they want to live around people that need help owning a home there, or whatever the case is? That's the other thing. Home ownership it's a big responsibility. But the affordable housing thing. So we're sending all this money to nonprofits, right? We want to house the homeless. No problem. We want to make property cheaper for people to get in so they can own homes. No problem. The issue is that all the money that we are sending via our tax dollars to the nonprofits, they have created subsidiary nonprofit development arms, which
Mhm.
then go in and are buying up our housing stock as nonprofits, and they're building it as affordable housing, right? So that's great if they're going to put these people that are on the streets in there, or they're going to help people that are, on the edge of, becoming homeless, or, trying to get into a property or something like that. If they were doing that, that's fine. What they're doing is they're also using our tax dollars to keep these new builds empty because there's a holding period attached to all of these things. So after 3, 10, or 15 years, usually out here in California, it used to be 15 years, they were designed as affordable housing. But once that designation drops off, which used to be 15 years, it used to, in Montana, it's in perpetuity, right? So if you build affordable housing, it's affordable housing forever. If you mess with that, you're going to piss a lot of people off. Here in California, they've been reducing that metric from 15 years to 10 years. Now I heard it's even 3 years. So they keep it
Mhm.
empty 3 years with our tax dollars by paying the builder's loans, taxes, insurance, whatever the case is. And then after 3 years, that affordable housing thing goes away, and then they can sell it at full retail price. Now
Oh,
they're selling
wow.
basically a brand new condo, right? And so it's a windfall for the developers. And then they do the kickbacks for the politicians, and then it's just a vicious cycle. And so that's why we have all these beautiful buildings. Well, not beautiful for the most part. It depends. Some are really nice, beautiful buildings. Some look like communist blocks, right?
Mhm.
It kind of depends on how much they put into it. But they're all sitting around town empty. And this is everywhere. Like, most of these buildings are just sitting there empty, and they're done. You know,
I
that's
I know they're empty. The thing I did not know is about why they're empty. That is wild.
We're paying to keep them empty.
Wow.
So we pay to build them with our tax dollars, right? All these subsidies, right? So the politicians have designed this. I believe it's Tony Atkins, who's in charge of affordable housing policy here in California. She's married to a developer,
Oh, man.
a woman who owns a development company who's building a lot of affordable housing here in San Diego, I believe. Um, but I don't know how that's not a conflict of interest at the same time. But they have basically written all these policies into law. So it's not essentially illegal. It's just shouldn't be doing it. It's ethically wrong.
It's so sad because people, any of the things that potentially start out as genuine, like let's take some tax dollars and build some houses that poor people can live in. Everyone will be like, okay, sure, great. Like let's help out, right? And then all those areas get co-opted into just being money laundering eventually. And people are still thinking we need affordable housing. And literally all that's happening is someone stealing money from the rest of the citizens around them. And
Yeah,
that's, you could look across multiple areas of governments where spending is like that. And you'd go, we need to do this. And it's actually just completely stealing money from everyone else.
yeah, it's really unfortunate. I mean, there's a civic duty from a lot of us that a lot of us citizens should have. And it's tough. A lot of people are so busy nowadays. There's so much going on. Everything's going by so fast. I feel like a lot of people don't have the time to, really hold their elected officials accountable. Because I mean, you got soccer practice, baseball practice for your kids, whatever the case is. You got to prioritize everything. So I think a lot of it just gets lost in the mix.
Yep. All right. So then if we're kind of moving down the line, if you're funneling billions toward homelessness, and actually there's more homeless people as a result, and then you're funneling money toward building affordable housing that sits there empty, there's obviously a limited amount of budget. And so that means they basically can't spend in other areas that you'd actually pay for as a taxpayer, right? Keep the streets clean, safe, beaches clean, parks, it's like simple stuff, schools. So let's try to move down the line. Like, where are the other areas suffering as a result of this embezzlement?
Yeah, I mean, it really cutbacks on maintenance, I think, is one of the big topics last night at Richard Bailey's event. He has a really cool platform where, you know, people are coming to meet him about policy over politics, and he has kind of a real time poll going on. You scan a QR code and kind of takes everyone's opinions. Everyone is seeing the lack of
Huh.
maintenance all over the city. And it's not just recently, right? This isn't just because of this bad fiscal year that the city had. The city had record revenue this year, right?
Mhm.
But at the same time, the population apparently has been flat for the last 5 years or so. But middle management has grown by something I want to say 27 or 40%. Either way, it's egregious to have that many middle managers. And when you have that many middle managers, you don't have a lot of actual boots on the ground doing what needs to be done. So
No.
it doesn't really matter whether it's, you know, bathroom maintenance, which is huge. I mean, you'll see, I mean, they're just, our public restrooms are in terrible shape. They've been in terrible shape for 2 decades.
Hmm.
You know, that the sidewalks, we've got weeds growing out, and they're not just weeds now, they're trees, essentially. They're small trees now, just breaking the concrete. That's one of the things that drives me nuts the most is because the maintenance, when you start letting leaves pile up, then the trash piles up. And then the trash gets
Yeah.
it starts locking into place, and that's when you start it starts everything starts germinating after it rains and everything, and they plant the seeds there in the cracks, and then that's when you start breaking up the concrete. So if you don't do the consistent maintenance, then you start seeing your infrastructure get destroyed. And we're seeing that all over San Diego, and I mean that's been going on for, you know, more than 5 years now. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that's the biggest issue for everyone is why why is City Hall not prioritizing what needs to be done? And that could be managed decline. They could be doing this on purpose because I don't know. It's pretty mind boggling to have this much disarray in the city, and then everyone notices it. Everyone I talk to notices it. So,
Yeah. Um, well, tell us about that theory about the managed decline. Like, how would it be in their interest to see it get worse?
well, all right. So the Democratic Party has essentially been taken over by Democratic Socialists of America. That seems to be common knowledge nowadays.
Hmm.
And there's this theory of pushing socialism on America versus capitalism because of how things are with affordability, et cetera, et cetera. I can kind of understand that a little bit, but you have to understand history a little bit better to understand that this is a very, very bad, dangerous path that we're on. And we're seeing it firsthand here in San Diego. So there's all this trepidation and news about New York and this new mayor, Mamdani or whatever is going on over there. But what people
Hmm.
don't understand is that San Diego has been running this experiment for 5 years now. We have a Democratic supermajority here. And it'd be one thing if, you know, we just kind of argued over how much money we wanted to put into social programs versus like how much we wanted to tax people, et cetera. You know, Republican versus Democrat arguments that are historically, you know, going on for the last 50, 75 years, whatever. But now it's more um, tax the rich and confiscate property kind of thing.
Hmm.
And we're seeing this play out in real time. You know, the taxes are just getting increased through the roof. We've never seen this many taxes at one
Yeah.
time ever in the history of San Diego. And at the same time, they're not really deploying those taxes in a way that would benefit the regular taxpayer. So what are we doing here? Are we actively managing the city into a state where nobody wants to be here and everybody just wants to sell their property and leave, and then the developers scoop it up for pennies on the dollar? It's kind of like that meme from RoboCop, you know, when you allow the crime to happen, and then you let the unscrupulous corporations come in and buy everything up.
Yeah.
Couple theories.
Yeah. I mean, like the simplest way to put it is there's a quote. I just had to look it up. It looks like it was George Washington, but he said the last official act of any government is to loot the treasury. And basically, when things get bad enough what you'll see is I'm no longer going to provide any service to anybody. I'm just going to take the money because this is the final little money grab
Hmm.
before it falls apart. And that's not next year. That's kind of just the phase we're in until things reset one way or another. It could be much smaller government, more free markets would be a reset, fewer taxes, or the reset could be socialism, communism. And you're basically seeing both of those vying for the reset. But pretty much the simplest way to look at it is we're at the end of this fourth turning or this multi-hundred-year debt cycle or all these different cycles that are lining up right now, and everyone's just going to money grab because it feels like there's no value in providing value anymore. I might as well just take what I can get from me. That seems like the simplest answer to what's going on kind of across the West. And there could be much darker things than that, but just like incentive wise, that's a simple way to look at it for me.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And if you look at the Marxist playbook, right? The whole idea is to set the bourgeoisie up for failure, so that they will ultimately join the working class to overthrow the government and the elites. Right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what's going on. And so right now, if you the it doesn't make sense, all these taxes that they're pushing constantly, other
Hmm.
than to piss the middle class off,
Hmm.
which seems to be working. We're seeing just a lot of frustration out there, more frustration than we've possibly ever seen. But I don't think this grand plan of a revolution is actually going to happen in America. I wish them all the luck, these socialists and communists, but I just don't think um, I don't think they're going to have an effect here in America. I mean, it's already kind of winding down. But that said, we still have this political problem, right? And they are in charge of the purse strings, and they could be pushing bankruptcy on a lot of our cities and states and counties and states.
Yeah, let me ask you about like the budgets of San Diego and California and sort of the deficits. Like what are those numbers, those figures for the state of California and for the city? And how does a deficit work on a local level? I mean, at the national level, you essentially just keep printing money to pay off the old debt. But at a states and cities can't print money. So when they are spending more than they take in, how does that ultimately end?
Bankruptcy, probably. Um, they
And what
they
happens
su-
when
they
a state goes bankrupt? Like, what does that look like?
gosh, Escape from LA, maybe. Uh,
Oh, that's for sure.
Escape from California. Uh, Pulling Kurt Russell. I don't. I don't know, man. I believe states and cities, counties, they sell bonds, right? In order to generate some kind of revenue. That's
Hmm.
a little above my pay grade, but I would imagine that if you run into bankruptcy, you're probably going to see all of your services turn off. You see garbage pile up on the streets. You're going to
Yeah,
see. I don't think that police are going to abandon their stations or anything like that. I think you'll see a lot of unrest, though.
yeah,
Fire departments, they're gonna respond according to their given safety levels. They're not going to put themselves in harm's way. There's the old saying, "Whose emergency is it? Your emergency." Um, and that's it's a scenario I don't think people are thinking about too much, but I think a lot of places are right on the verge of bankruptcy. Um,
hmm
So what does that mean? Does that mean that like private equity comes in and buys everything up? Does Elon Musk come in and buy things? Does he send armies of robots to help us out? I don't know.
yeah. I don't know either. Um, okay, so I know you spend a lot of time in Montana too. Um, how does it compare to the local governments and up there? How's it different?
Hmm. Ironically, it's becoming similar, which
Is it?
is yeah. I'm trying to warn people out there. I stumbled onto a nonprofit homeless affordable housing scam out there, which
Oh, wow.
destroyed a woman's life who actually, really cared about helping people. It was with the Housing Authority of Whitefish. For some reason, the board decided to hire somebody from East St. Louis. I have a feeling it was probably DEI related. He came in, was the director of the Housing Authority there, and or assistant director, something like that. But the alarming thing is that he grifted a $500,000 in less than a year from Housing Authority in Whitefish, which is, this is a small, relatively small population valley,
Yeah.
and he had all the pieces in place in order to steal that much money. Like he had all these fake service providers,
Oh,
um,
man.
and then the media, instead of investigating properly there, they just piled on. And I think there was some finger pointing going on, and ultimately this woman lost her job and she lost her reputation, and she sued and ultimately won $1.5 million in defamation, because they got the whole story wrong. It was this guy that they hired and brought into the valley, who ended up stealing $500,000 from the program. And I think they gave him maybe like 12 months probation or something like that, or 18 months probation, something ridiculous like that, which just encourages other people to do this grift. But the big thing that I took away from that was the service providers. And so when I started looking at service providers here in San Diego, that's where it starts to get real interesting with the nonprofits, because they're all listed on the tax returns.
Mm.
And I think that once you start looking at the service providers and the nonprofits and you start asking for receipts, they become very, very difficult to provide. And
Wow.
that's where law enforcement can step in and really get a handle on this whole thing, because the receipts is generally where these people um, get caught.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm assuming the Montanans are just saying it's getting worse because the Californians moved in, though. Is that
Yeah,
a feeling? Maybe they don't
yeah.
say it to you.
I think Montanans hate Texans more than they hate Californians.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Um, but Californians, everyone from California realizes that they need to keep their head down out there, and they don't really broadcast that they're from California. I tell people I'm from San Diego all the time because everyone loves San Diego. So that's the unique thing, right? Nobody really thinks of San Diego as California. We have our
Everyone
own
does love
unique.
San Diego.
Everyone
It's
loves San
so true.
Diego.
I know. It's
We
true.
have the best weather. We have great Mexican food, the surf, the beaches. For a
Yeah.
long time, everybody here was very cool, and we still do have a pretty cool vibe. Although we have imported a lot of people that don't really, adhere to the San Diego cool vibe. There's a lot of road rage out there, which I understand. I mean, the roads are in terrible shape, but yeah, I mean, it just used to be. So easy going here,
That's
and
true.
it's
Yeah.
just it's a little bit more intense now. And I think that a lot of the policies that are coming out of City Hall and the way the city is being managed and run into the ground, I think it's just on everyone's psyche, to be honest.
Well, also, in just simply put, in the last decade or two, people are living much closer to the edge of being able to afford to live here, if at all. So even if you're like middle class, let's say in the Navy, there's a huge military presence here, obviously, and they get their VA loans and housing stipend and they have their salary and they can make it work. But if you're going to go buy a house and live in it right now, you're the most stretched you've ever been on that salary. And so 10 years ago, living in the exact same house, you're probably actually saving some money. And right now, you're just paying for your house, not saving any money. And I mean, everyone's kind of stretched so much further to just live here than they were before. I mean, that could be contributing to the vibe shift, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's funny. I've done VA loans all over the country, and these guys are really, really smart, and gals, um, and some of them are based in New Mexico or wherever the case is. I say, hey, do you want to use your VA loan to buy it? Buy another place or something like that. No, no, no. I'm gonna buy a place in San Diego. I'm gonna get stationed there. Eventually, that's my goal. So I
Hmm.
want to save it for that. I'm like, oh, it makes a lot of sense. And you just saw less and less and less of that over the last, I want to say, 5 years or so. Where before the first 10 years, that was kind of everybody's goal, was
Yeah.
to try and purchase a place out here in California with their VA loan, because there's some points attached to it, the VA funding fee, essentially. And so if you don't have a disability of any sort, then most likely you're going to have to pay that, and it goes up if it's low your first time, but then if you use it subsequently, it goes up. That fee goes up. So um, you just saw a lot of really smart financial planning from military people, and now they're more focused on buying a home back where they're from, so they can
Yeah.
be closer to family and things like that.
I can, yeah, I see the exact same thing. And, the way I would say it is you're actually the baby boomers and older who were in the Navy and they were stationed here and, were here for 5 years or something and their kids lived here. You hear over and over, they come back and try to retire here. And they did. And they ended up buying here later. And I've heard it many, many times of like, yeah, my father-in-law was in the Navy and they moved back here after he retired. You hear that over and over. And then for like the millennial age, it's yeah, it's great here. We can't afford it. We're going to buy in Florida. We're going to buy in Pennsylvania, wherever we're from. Like in one or two generations, that has changed. Um, Unfortunately,
I mean, you can get in Montana. I mean, you have to deal with the rain and the mud season, right? You have to deal really, really cold winter. But man, you get a really, really nice house for $500,000 with a yard, in a
yeah,
nice neighborhood. It's easy to get around. I'm back here in San Diego. I'm here mainly to take care of my mother, because
mm,
she's got some health issues, and so I try to help out with her as much as I can,
hmm,
while I'm back here. But what you get for your money here is it's a lot less. I mean, just
yeah,
the gas prices alone, out of
yeah,
control.
yep, yep. All right, so I think there's like two more parts to the discussion, and tell me if I missed anything you'd like to discuss. But I'd love to get your take on historically what does this compare to, like a great city declining. Again, the discussion about San Diego is really a microcosm for a lot of Western cities. It could be far worse in some European cities, as far as I know. But what does this compare to? What does it look like throughout history that's repeating here?
Um, I mean, based on my rudimentary understanding of world history, this is pretty much exactly what happened with Rome, right? And it comes down to corruption. It comes down to
Hmm.
the laws. I think one of the biggest problems with Rome was that they had so many laws, that were just overlapping, and it just kind of strangled their effectiveness through just bureaucracy. I
Yeah,
think one of the things that Caesar was trying to do was, toss out a lot of those things, those redundant laws, and that's one of the things that's contributing to this affordable housing, monstrosity of a crisis, is that you have the city, county, and state laws all multiplying the affordable housing density bonuses, right? So the state may say that, like, hey, you can do X, Y, and Z, and then the county will say, well, add in A and B, and
yeah,
then the city says, well, you can also add in C. So these are all cumulative bonuses, that are going to this whole, destroying what was probably intended as a good idea.
right. Yeah, and then the Palisades fire. Not a single house has been rebuilt. That bridge in Maryland that got destroyed hasn't been rebuilt. I mean, you can't get anything done anymore like we used to, where you used to just go build it, and now you got to jump through all these hoops. to get it done. I mean, yeah, it completely seizes up the progress of
Strangulation
this
through
place.
regulation.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I mean it also, I would say we're not there yet, but Buenos Aires in Argentina, like some of those cities that were once great, tons of wealth. The weird thing is they're still, and they're really like dangerous now. Venezuela, one of the most wealthy countries in the world at one point. Now it's the worst place in the world to live, just about. The weird thing is there's still wealthy people there. Just all that happens is the middle class gets completely eroded out, and you keep your nice house in the city in Buenos Aires, and what you do is you build a wall around it 1 year, and then 5 to 10 years later you get private security, and you get cameras, and then you get bulletproof glass on your cars, and like slowly over 15 years you're still wealthy, yet the city you live in looks nothing like it did before, because the the middle class has been completely eroded out. And we are not there now, but there's much less of a middle class here in San Diego than when I lived here, and there's more of the big beautiful $5 million home with a homeless guy sleeping outside on the sidewalk from it than there
100%.
was
Yeah.
before, right? And that's kind of the
Yes.
sign of like, if you lived in one of these places, you might go, it's not that bad. Let's just build a higher fence, and then we should be good. And then you go, let's just get some security cameras, and then it should be good. And you kind of slowly degrade the living standards, even for the wealthy, which is really ironic. But that's like the path it's on, and it's not right now, but that's where it's going without change.
Being in the fence building business has got to be one of the most lucrative businesses in San Diego.
Oh, that's a sad way to put it. Oh man.
Yeah, so I'm seeing these iron bar fences going up, pretty much, I want to say daily around all of the freeways, and state protected spaces to protect them from homeless people going in there. And these are not like chain link fences. These are semi iron bar fences. They're thinner than normal iron bars, but they got the thick iron bars around the edges.
Mm,
But then they have this thicker than normal iron mesh, which are going up all around the freeway, California state properties. I think that's what I'm seeing all over.
yeah, I mean, it's a sign for sure. You see these things around,
It's
and
just it's a
they're
bummer,
signs.
man, because you have all this beautiful landscaping,
Yep.
that could be beautiful. It's usually littered with garbage now, and like leftover rubber gloves and remnants of somebody camping there or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and now we're just seeing like iron bars everywhere. It's a little dystopian.
Yeah. Okay, so then I would say the last piece is, how do you fix this stuff? How does this get reversed?
Great question. Um, we gotta shift the politics in this city, in this state, in this county. And Richard Bailey talked about this last night, very eloquently. And when you have everybody from one party on uh, whatever board or council or whatever the case is, he said a lot of these people don't have political cover, which means that I guess they're not maybe backed by a party or backed by a union or something like that. So they can't really stick their neck out on issues that would jeopardize their position of being reelected. But if you get one person in from on the other end of the spectrum, that one person will completely shift the dynamic to bring everybody back to the middle immediately,
Yeah.
because now you have somebody providing cover for common sense. So people can drastically go to the middle, and it's easier for everyone to come up with a better plan forward, I think. And I thought that was a genius way to describe how things work. And he has a lot more experience
Yeah.
than most of us in that realm.
Yeah. Shifting the Overton window, I think it's called, right?
Yeah, something along those lines. That sounds right.
Yeah. It's bringing what is the acceptable thing you can say in public that everyone go like, yeah, yeah, I agree with that. And you got to shift it back where even a couple of years ago, it was like the DEI and trans stuff. I think it's better than it was 2, 3 years ago. But
Oh yeah.
if you were to say, boys can't turn into girls 2, 3 years ago, you're not allowed to say that in public.
No,
And you actually
no.
need to shift it back to like common sense, and you need someone to kind of do that at a high level. Yeah, it makes sense. Um,
That's such a wild it's a wild thing, man. I had a guy here at the gym locker room say some weird stuff to me one time, and he clearly shouldn't have been in there. And I was kind of wondering like what is going on with this guy, and then he said some weird stuff to me, and that was I was like, hey, we got to get this guy out of here. And that was in the men's locker room. I can't
that's crazy.
imagine somebody like that in a woman's locker room. I've self-defense training from being law enforcement and, the whole 9 yards. And, that stuff still makes me really nervous. I mean, I've almost been killed twice. A guy tried to stab me with a pair of scissors one morning, and another guy, was trying to rape a girl one morning and ended up taking a full can of pepper spray from me, picking me up and body slamming me like a rag doll. Um,
No way.
and then he proceeded to go ahead and punch out the headlight on my truck and fill his hand with glass.
Oh,
So, and then, he got arrested 8 more times, and got 3 years probation. It's funny, I actually just found the subpoena, that I had to show up to trial to testify against him. He didn't show up to that trial.
oh man. Wow. That is
Wild stuff.
wild. That is
Yeah.
wild.
That's
Yeah, I
just
mean,
par for the course here, that story is a dime a dozen though,
mm,
unfortunately.
really,
Yeah.
jeez. I think there's a couple challenges of like these things go through cycles, and you would think California would get some common sense again at some point, but then you have two concepts fighting about that. Like the people that are like really fed up move. They move out and it actually gets more blue theoretically. And then the Prop 50 thing that just happened is just, hey, common sense might be coming back. How do we shuffle things around so that we squash the votes of the people with some common sense? I mean, you've got those two things fighting against it. Like you could see a path more clearly to it turning around because people are like, I don't really care. Yes, I'm liberal, but I don't want 3 homeless people sleeping outside where I have kids. Right? Like it always breaks at some point when it comes to your personal life. Um, but those are two couple of headwinds, like people moving and shifting the districts around.
One of my lifeguard buddies, he sent me a picture of a naked guy outside his kid's school that they could see from
No.
the classroom. Um, it's pretty wild. But then, I asked him, I said, hey, who are you going to vote for? He's like, oh, obviously Democrats, they're funding our union.
Yeah.
If we don't vote for them, then we don't get our raises, we don't get our new lifeguard tower, and I think that's a real disservice,
Oh,
because
yeah.
I think any politician would want to support our safety services, and get a new tower, make sure that we have a safe environment for all of our safety services personnel. And if you saw the Mission Beach lifeguard tower right now, it's basically condemned.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's literally falling apart. It's under construction. There was a
Hmm.
city whistleblower that actually told me that it's in really, really bad shape and they should not be in there. So I think it's
Interesting.
getting replaced right now, but they're also shoring it up and kind of working out of there. It's a really bad situation. And this is our main lifeguard station on the entire strand from South Mission to Mission Beach to Pacific Beach, all the way up to North Pacific Beach. So it's
Yeah.
basically the command center for the entire strand, and it is a condemned building essentially.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything we missed here today? Did we something big
Gosh.
we didn't get to?
Um, I I think we covered that was a wide swath of policy stuff, cause and effect, and also solutions. I think we knocked it out of the park here, Henry.
Yeah. I appreciate your work getting out on the roads and showing the trash, and you're you're doing the hard work. I appreciate it.
You
So
know,
keep up the
I
good
really
work.
just thank you. Yeah, I was just gonna say I just pull over if I see something. You know what I mean? Like it only takes a couple minutes just to get the message out to everybody. And if more of us did this, I think we would have a broader picture of what's actually happening in all of our communities. So I encourage everyone to do it. And my team of friends, and we'll go ahead and amplify that message if you get it to us. So thank you,
Cool.
appreciate it.
Yeah. I'm gonna link to your story about that homeless encampment. This is pretty wild for people to look at. And then I'll link to your Twitter profile. Anywhere else you want to send people to stay
No,
connected?
that's good. Pretty much everything is kind of private. But I'll go ahead and send that over to you. I'll send it to you DM, or I'll tag you in it, whichever's
Cool.
better for you.
Great. Thanks, Adam. Have a good rest of your day.